I have good things coming. I don't have to know what those good things are for them to be good. Today may be another one of those affirmation day vlogs because I have a job interview today. It is connected to the job fair that I went to at this point 3 weeks ago. It is the follow-up from that, and while I have high hopes, I'm also trying not to get ahead of myself, and it does seem like it will be an official interview, which honestly my nerves are very high for. I almost feel like higher than the job fair because, and I kind of mentioned this in the video that I went to the job fair in, I was pretty nonchalant headed into the job fair, and then when I was leaving the job fair, I was like, dang it, now I'm very excited and this is a job that I really want. So now the interview feels higher risk and higher reward, but also higher risk because I am really wanting it. Also, it feels different because I feel like I just got prepared and I just went through all the nerves to go to the job fair, and I felt this big like, whew, it's all done, except now it's not all done and I'm doing it again, except bigger. I did get requests to talk a little bit about resumes and interview tips, especially as far as social work goes, and I'll share what I've been doing. Obviously, we don't know at this point if it's going to get me the job or not. Again, fingers crossed. But I am happy to share resume tips that I've kind of compiled and interview tips that I've compiled, both from whenever I was in college. I feel like University of Alabama did a lot to prepare people for resumes and interviews and everything. They had their career center that was very helpful. And then also just since then. So I'm not an expert. Obviously, I'm going through the process, and these are just tips that I have heard. But other things that I think can be helpful, honestly, finding people on TikTok. There are a lot of people who are interview coaches or career coaches who are on TikTok who make videos showing like the best ways to answer different types of questions, or what questions to expect headed into an interview, or resume tips, etc. And I think those are good like bite-sized chunks of information to just kind of scroll through. Honestly, that's what I did right when I woke up this morning. Whether that's healthy or not to start interview day by looking at interview tips on TikTok for like an hour, I do not know. However, this is what my current resume looks like, redacted version. Some things that I've heard to be important on resumes. Mine is 1 page. I have more work experience than is on this, but it includes my specific social work experience. It doesn't have any volunteer opportunities on it. It doesn't have any customer service type jobs that I've had before. And so I think it's really up to you and the experience that you have and how long of bullet points you're going to put under each experience of what you want to include on it. For me, I just feel like these are the two relevant, and then if anything else comes up in conversation, it can come up in conversation, but this is the direct relevant experience that they will most care about. I have always heard to keep resumes 1 page. Obviously, this is going to be different depending on people's industries and everything. In my experience, 1 page has proved to be pretty good, just because you can imagine whenever people are looking through resumes, looking to hire someone, they're looking through so many resumes and they're not going to read both of your pages if there are 2. However, what I have heard is that if you do need 2 pages, like to fit everything that is truly relevant and that you truly need on there, to make sure that it is worthy of being 2 pages. You don't want 1.5 pages or 1 page and then a fluff page. If it's 2 pages, it needs to be like chock full of good information. And if you can't reach that 2 pages, then try to adjust the margins and everything just to fit it on 1 page. My resumes have looked different through time, different templates and everything, but honestly, I have found that this is just very straightforward bullet points. It doesn't necessarily stand out and like, oh, it's so beautiful, or the graphic design, because I know some people like to go maybe like on Canva and get resume templates there. I think that's fine. I've just never felt the need to, and I like my kind of professional, clean, organized look, and I feel like it looks good while also not being distracting at all and remaining very professional. That's just personal opinion for me though. Some things that I did while I was writing this resume is I craft my resumes to the job description that I'm applying for, which is something, if you want to learn how to do it more in depth, kind of look up maybe how to do that. But what I mean is that social work has a lot of transferable skills, and even though the job that I'm interviewing for today is not the same as the job I currently have, there are a lot of transferable skills, and so I just worded it in such ways that the skills that I'm doing right now are using the same verbiage as what they say they're looking for in their job description. For example, and I don't remember exactly what the job description said, but something like completing assessments to clients. And so I worded mine in my current job description of what I'm currently doing as complete comprehensive psychosocial assessments to assess current needs. And I know that I probably did not come up with that wording. I know that that wording was probably pulled from the job description. Obviously changed it enough that it's not just like a copy and paste, but this was something at the job fair where the person I was talking to was like, wow, it seems like this would be a very clean transition from your current role into this new role. And I was like, crazy, what? As if I didn't put the puzzle pieces together, you know, to make it look like that, because it is that, but you also want to sell it as that. As I mentioned, this is obviously the redacted version of mine, but I just have my name and then contact information is under there. And then I just have the little blurb, licensed master social worker with experience engaging diverse client populations through assessment, intervention, evaluation, and termination. Little skills highlights, case management, comprehensive assessment, interdisciplinary collaboration, empathetic approach, strengths-based focus, and attention to detail. This is just if you want to highlight skills. You don't even have to have these chunks. I just like it. And then I get into my experience. I have my current position that I started at in September 2021 till present, and I showed that I was a mental health intern for 9 months before transitioning to an employee in June 2022. I have my bullet points, and then I have my BSW internship, which is my other relevant social work experience, August 2020 to December 2020. I said where I was with, what I was, and then again bullet points that I had matched the job description. Licensure in education, LMSW, granted October 2022, Master of Social Work 2022, Bachelor of Social Work 2021, and again I just included what I thought could be relevant information as far as GPA goes. If you're proud of things, I think put them on your resume. So like if you are not proud of your GPA but you are proud of involvements that you had in your degree course, then include those. But for me, I included GPA, summa cum laude, and then for Bachelor, BSW Honors Professional Program. A couple small things just to keep in mind with your resume. People have different opinions of what verb tense you should use, whether you're using, like I said, complete, manage, counsel, evaluate. Some people would say you need to do completed, managed, counseled, evaluated, or completes, manages, counsels, just the small things that are verb tense. I don't think it really matters what verb tense you use, but just make sure that it's consistent throughout your resume. So don't say completed, manages, counsel, evaluated, just make it match. I do think formatting is important just because that is the way that it presents on the paper. So try to make sure that your capitals are consistent. Try to make sure the spacing is consistent as far as whatever format you're using. Just making sure there's no weird bullet point that's all the way over here when all the other bullet points are over here. Those are just small things that I believe makes it look cleaner and put together more. Talking actual interview prep for what they're going to be talking about in the interview, theoretically, I think it's important to come up with just answers for commonly asked questions. That's not a guarantee that they would ask those questions, and that's not a guarantee that they wouldn't ask a question that's outside of what you've prepared for. But I think it helps get you in that mindset, and so that you don't feel as starstruck if they ask you a question and you're like, I've never thought before what my greatest weakness is. Today, I really was not feeling prepared, so I actually did a little journaling of answers to questions, just so I could come up with answers. And while I'm not going to be memorizing scripts or anything like that, I do hope that by having done this morning, it'll at least have answers more readily available in my mind so I can actually say what I mean and come across accurate to who I am. But some commonly asked questions to be prepared for are a tell me about yourself question, which usually just is in the beginning where they're just looking for a blurb about you. Tips that I've seen for this are to word it in a past, current, and future way. And so whenever people say tell me about yourself, a common mistake that I've heard from my little TikTok experts is that people will focus too much on the journey or too much on your personal life. Oh, well, I decided that I wanted to go into social work whenever I was 5 years old and I had this teacher, just more droning on instead of clear, concise. And what they're really curious of is why are you here applying to this job? A little bit of background and context, but not focusing entirely on the past and focusing on current, but then how that transitions into your future. So for me, and this will be practice because I wrote it today, but I haven't actually practiced. Hi, my name is Anna. I got my bachelor's of social work at the University of Alabama back in 2021, where I also minored in human development and family studies, and then transitioned into getting my Master of Social Work through Fordham University, which I graduated from in May of 2022. Now I am an LMSW and am experienced working with diverse populations of both children and youth. In my current role at Redacted, I have gained expertise in conducting intake assessments to assess clients' current needs, managing a caseload of 10 adolescent males for counseling, evaluating and addressing risk, participating in an interdisciplinary team, preparing clients for discharge, and documenting all of the above accurately and timely. Now I'm looking to pivot into a role within a new environment where I can take on new responsibilities while continuing to build on the foundation of social work skills. Specifically, I'm pursuing this role at Redacted because the dedication this agency has to the children that it serves and to the community as a whole is impossible to miss. I know that the experience I have gained at my current position has equipped me to transition into a new role with confidence and competence as I continue my career growth. Ooh, was that good? Again, like I said, I don't know if I've gotten the job, so take everything I say with a grain of salt, but I think it's good to see other people processing through the questions, because if there were parts of that you were I'm not gonna say that, then perfect, don't say that. You can use it, however, which way you want to help you out. Some other questions that you should probably be prepared for are things like, what is your greatest strength? What is your greatest weakness? I've decided that if they ask strength today, I'm going to talk about adaptability and how in fast-paced working environments, you can have an entire to-do list for your day, and then you show up for the day and just have to go back to the drawing board, triage needs, and be flexible in the way that you complete tasks. While also mentioning explaining how I got 2 degrees and had 2 internship experiences through COVID-19, where everyone was forced to be very adaptable. I'm going to word that a little bit different, but those are kind of my thoughts headed into that one. And then with weaknesses, from what I've heard, it's important to be true and accurate to yourself, like actually say a weakness that is something that you work on, but to focus about 80% of the time speaking on how you are working on that weakness and how you've gotten better instead of focusing just like on how bad you are. So what I've decided for mine today is that I'm going to say I sometimes find it difficult to delegate responsibilities whenever I feel that I could complete a task well by myself. However, as I took on a training role and as I helped supervise an intern in my current position, it became critical for me to delegate tasks, and I had to learn that completing tasks on my own is not a gift to my coworkers, who were ready and wanting to learn just as much as I was. Teamwork works best with mutual trust and mutual effort, and in learning to delegate tasks better, ultimately better service was achieved for clients. It took me a while to craft that. Again, don't know if it's good or not. Something that kind of threw me for a little loop-de-loo whenever I was asked at the job fair, so I'm trying to prepare for it better this time, is questions along the lines of, what is your 5-year goal? What is your 5-year plan? What are your career goals? Because ultimately, I believe that they ask this, again, as a way to get to know who you are, but then also as a way to know if you're looking for what their company offers, like if you are just using them as a trampoline bouncing point, or if you are wanting to grow in this position. I don't feel comfortable doing this one without reading what I wrote yet, but my career goal is to work within an agency who does good both to the population they serve and to their employees. It is important to me to be properly supported so that clients can receive the best. In doing so, I aim to stay on a track of building existing skills and remaining a lifelong learner in order to become a better social worker each day. If this future role is one that requires an LCSW, then that is a licensure that I will pursue when it is time. And then probably some way to kind of wrap that up. I'm trying to think of other questions that are sometimes asked. Whenever I interviewed last March for an agency that I ended up not working for, they asked me, what are 4 reasons why you should work for this company? That one was weird to me because I was like, 1, 2, 3, 4. And also they'd asked me my greatest strength before that. So I was like, I had just gotten done talking about my greatest strength. And then it was like, oh, the wording was, what are 4 ways that you would be an asset to this company? And part of me wanted to be like, everything I just told you about. Obviously I didn't, but that one just threw me for a loop whenever it came up last year. Sometimes they'll ask, why should we choose you for this role? I don't have an answer prepared for that yet. Sometimes they'll ask you about a challenging situation, or tell me a time when you were working in a fast-paced environment, or tell me a time that you made a mistake or that you dropped the ball. And I think it's good just to have a situation on hand that you can pull from. I, again, don't know exactly which one I'll kind of have in my head for if that question is asked, but if you've heard of the STAR method for interviews before, I feel like I'm just like throwing noodles at a wall as far as interview tips go, and we'll see where they land. But if you've heard of the STAR method before, that's kind of a generally accepted good way to answer those situation questions. And so STAR stands for situation, task, action, results. So you kind of give context of the situation, and then you say like what the task at hand was, and then you say what you did, and then you say how it ended up. And then a part of interviews that I think often gets glossed over is whenever they ask you, do you have any questions for us? And it's always good to have questions planned for that, because it shows that you're interested in the role, that you're interested in the interview, but also gives you a chance to actually learn things that you may be wondering. Sometimes a good question to ask is, what does a day-to-day look like in this position? This is something I kind of already talked about at the job fair whenever I went before, so I'm not gonna ask that one today. The ones that I have pulled up that I would like to know is asking interviewers like, why this company? What led you to them specifically compared to competitors, or like what has caused you to stay? Kind of asking like why they enjoy working there. Asking, what does an ideal candidate for this position look like? Just so I know. And then also, what does professional development consist of as far as supervision goes and CEUs go? Which is relevant for social work, because if you have a master's and you're looking to get your clinical license eventually, you need to know kind of like what their supervision does look like, if they offer it, if they offer paying for CEUs, or if they offer CEUs themselves, or if that's something they're just like, hands off, whatever you do is good to know, because then you know what the environment is for social workers. I hope that was helpful. I'll try to be utilizing all of these as I do the interview today, but you know, who knows? It is in person, so whenever I'm getting dressed or getting ready, we will chat again. Affirmation time. I can do hard things. I can be nervous and still do those hard things. I am confident. I am competent. It doesn't matter how this interview goes. I'll be okay regardless. I'll be great regardless. I have good things coming. I don't have to know what those good things are for them to be good and for them to be coming. I'm okay. I've got this. I'm okay. I've got this. I don't know how I never finished this video, but I never gave my reflection, probably because I just felt overwhelmed. You know, interviews are hard to go through. Overall, it went well. I was at a panel interview, but it ended up being just 3 people that I was talking with because 2 couldn't come and it was originally going to be 5. So it ended up being friendly people, a lot of chat. It took about an hour and 15 minutes, which honestly feels like a long time to be on for the interview. A lot of the questions they asked were very similar ones to the ones I had prepared, which is nice. That's kind of why it's good to review commonly asked interview questions, because lots of times they don't stray, at least for the majority of the interview, they don't stray too far away from those common ones. A couple that I remember being asked that were different than the ones I necessarily had prepared for. They asked me about a time when I got in a conflict with a coworker, and I really couldn't come up with a good answer with that, because to be honest, there are not very many times where I've gotten in like true conflict. What I ended up talking about was a time of miscommunication with a coworker that then we like worked through it and it was okay. And I felt like, okay, like I think that's as close as I can get. And I remember her asking like, and so was there conflict there? And I had to be like no, I guess not. That question I just wasn't quite prepared for. I was asked about cultural competency, like in the work that I've done so far, what has that been like? Like what has that looked like for me? Which I did have like a bit to speak on, just being the currently only white employee at my job, and then also the fact that none of my clients are white. And so we had some discussion about like how that looks in social work and how to be like aware of power imbalances and how to address them, how to fight stigma, fight stereotype, use a voice, lift others' voices type of thing. I remember they asked me like, why now? Like you're talking about wanting to make this transition, you're talking about what you have been doing, what you hope to be doing, but like why right now are you applying and making this transition? Which I thought was a very like focused question. Like it wasn't one that I necessarily had thought directly like that before, but it did give me a chance to kind of speak on why I was preparing for this now. They did do a couple tell me about a situation when questions. That was what one of the conflict coworkers was, that kind of setup. There was also, they asked like, tell me about a situation when, I forget exactly how it was worded, but it was basically like you had to ask for help, like because you had too much you were doing, or tell me about a time when you had to reprioritize your to-do list. And they asked like, how do you do that if you have things you need to get done and then something comes up? Like how do you manage that? And those ones, it's hard for me to judge if I like answered well or not, because I don't know exactly what they were looking for. So I tried to answer true to myself, which I guess is, you know, all you can do really. Overall though, I am living proof that you can make it through an interview, and I was terrified leading up to it and going into it. I feel like I blacked out during it, because I think interviews are stressful because you have like, you know who you are, but having a limited time and limited interactions to portray to others who you are, like I get that that can be stressful, but they also are definitely things that are manageable and just are necessary parts of, you know, pursuing a job. So I hope that this video can help bolster some confidence, bolster some competence in you. Obviously, like I said, I don't know if I'm even any good at it. We're just gonna have to find out. But through my experience and through learning and hearing about other people's experiences and like some tips, I do hope that this video was helpful to you. Good luck to everyone who is watching this video who has any kind of interview upcoming. You've got this. You can be nervous and still got this. If you made it to this part of the video, put this emoji in the comments so that I know you did. Make sure to subscribe before you go, because there are big things coming, and I will see you next time.